I want to welcome you to don'tbeaone-trick-pony.com. Don't be a one-trick pony has to do with having a full toolbox where you learn flipping, subject to, lease options, private lender marketing, and much more. Let's get started. This is where you find solutions for home sellers and make money with most of your leads from your marketing. Most of your leads. Not all, but most. Let's get started. Now, here's the problem. Most people start in real estate investing with wholesaling and flipping. Now, if you know what that is, that's great. But for people that don't, it means that you find a seller that's willing to wholesale or sell really cheaply their property. And usually it needs a lot of work, and usually they need to get out as fast as possible. So, wholesaling flipping is you use an option agreement or a sale and purchase agreement with and/or assigns, and you basically make an agreement with the seller saying, Mr. Seller, I can get you cash, close quickly, and you can move on with your life. Here's the problem with that. There's a couple. The marketing for wholesaling flipping takes some money. You're looking for a needle in a haystack, and you're looking to hit that seller about 7, 8 times. Why? Because the frequency in mailing is very important in wholesaling flipping. You have to hit the seller over and over and over. That's one problem. The marketing takes time, it takes frequency, it takes a marketing budget. So if you don't have money and time, wholesaling flipping only is a bad idea. That's why we call our site Don't Be a One-Trick Pony. What else can you do? Well, what's the problem with rehabbing and retailing? Rehabbing and retailing means basically you are going to buy a property with your own money or with partners' money, and you need to do a good job on the rehab and sell it quickly. There's big checks in rehabbing retailing. It's called retailing. Why? Because you're retailing the sale to an FHA or conforming loan buyer. It's a consumer that's buying that end product. So you need to do it at a really high standard. It has to be to FHA standards, so that somebody can get a loan. So if you're going to be a good rehabber, you need access to private lenders, you need access to JV partners, and you need access to hard money lenders. And all of that, if you don't know what you're doing, it can take a long time to make any money in rehabbing and retailing. So what else can you do in real estate investing? Well, you can do seller financing. Now, we specialize in seller financing. It's not the only thing we do, but we deal with wraps, lease options, subject to installment sales, etc. And I define seller financing as this. What can you, as the seller, do to help the buyer buy the property? Or what can you, as the seller, help the buyer buy the property, or the investor buy the property, or solve the problem? So it's creative financing and seller financing. Now, right now, credit is tight. There's a lot of people that can almost get financing. They have good income, they don't have a lot of debt, but they have some debt, and there's some problem. So we put together people that are having a hard time selling their house. Usually it's because they don't have a lot of equity, and they're not a good wholesaling candidate. And we pair them up with people that just miss financing. And we're going to go through what those kind of terms mean a little bit later. Now, conventional and JV financing, this has to do with private lending, which is, most people understand private lending, but if you don't, it means that you're talking to somebody that has money in their IRA, and they are trying to get a better rate of return. They don't like Wall Street, they don't like mutual funds and stocks, they don't like low rates on CDs, which are under 1% sometimes, and they're looking for an alternative. And we use private lending to get private lenders. And a lot of times what we'll do is we will give speeches about private lending. And then people will come to us and say, well, how does it work? How do I get started? And that kind of thing. All right? JV partnering's got to do with working with doctors, perhaps. And you're saying to the doctors, Doc, what if I find a deal that is a rehab and you buy it and you fund the rehab and I'll do all the work as far as supervising it. And then we'll split the profits after it's sold. So that's a JV partnering. And we generally just start an LLC and partner with a doctor. And then home seller partnering. Let's say that we had a property that only had 10% equity, right? If it only had 10% equity in home seller partnering, we might say, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do the JV with you, and then we'll sell the property, and as long as we make a minimum amount of money, you get the balance. And we'll bring our own money to the table as far as the rehab. And a lot of times that's better than the We Buy Houses formula if we do a home seller partnering. So those are our 4 quadrants: wholesaling, flipping, rehabbing and retailing, seller financing, and conventional and JV financing. That will cover most residential leads that we get. And we generally give the seller 2 or more offers. That way we can find solutions for home sellers and make money with most of our leads. So, don't be a one-trick pony. Let's say you spend $500 a month in marketing. Let's say that you spend 80 hours a month in prospecting with home sellers on inbound and outbound marketing. Inbound means that they're calling you. Outbound means that you're calling out. And you can't find a wholesale deal at 70% of ARV less cost. Let's compare a wholesaling deal with a terms deal. Wholesaling, flipping only. What's the problem? And a comment on that problem. Well, the first problem, it's very frustrating to get started with just doing wholesaling. Why is it frustrating? Because you're not making any money. And you're really getting a lot of flack from your wife or husband. You're getting some flack from your friends and family. And you don't feel like you're a winner. You feel like you're a loser. Well, and if you're also not being effective, you're not making any money and you're spending money. So you're actually sinking in quicksand in small business. Your success rate is low. And your marketing costs like $500 a month minimum for 6 months minimum. Well, if you don't know that up front and you think you're going to get a deal in 1 to 2 months, well, you're going to be pulling your hair out if that's all you're doing. Well, what's a terms deal? No banks, no credit. Well, if you're doing a couple of subject to or lease option assignment deals or wraparound mortgage deals or installment sale deals a month and waiting for that wholesale flip or that rehab deal, then your frustration level is low and your effectiveness is very high. You're making money with most of your leads as opposed to over here. And your success rate is high. And you don't care about your marketing, $500 a month minimum for 6 months minimum. You keep that marketing going. Why? Because you're making money every month. So if you're making money every month, you really don't care as long as you're making more than you're spending. So the key is to give the seller 2 or 3 offers. Now we're going to go over some terms. You ready? The first term is subject to. Subject to means get the deed. The loan stays in the seller's name for a period of time, and then they deed you the house today. You own the house. There is a due on sale clause issue. If you don't know what due on sale clause, we have a class on due on sale clauses and land trusts and how we work with subject to. They go hand in hand. The next term is installment sale. An installment sale means that the seller sells a free and clear house without any loans on it, and they give you installment payments instead of chunk cash. That's what you give the seller. Okay? And the IRS lets you do an installment sale. Now there are cousins to installment sales like contracts for deed, agreements for deed, contracts for sale, that kind of thing, and land contracts. They're all basically the same thing. Every state has different rules about installment sales, but the IRS defines an installment sale a certain way, and it's generally you sell on installments. Now, what is a wraparound mortgage? A wrap means you wrap around the existing financing. So if there's a $100,000 house and a $50,000 first, you're going to wrap a brand new mortgage around that $50,000 first. That's very common in certain areas. It's also called AITDs in other areas. Now, lease options assignments, what's that? That means that you find a seller, and generally they have very little equity, and they can't sell their house. They've tried with an agent. They don't want to rent it out, so they want to look at lease to own and see if that's better for them. Well, lease option assignment, you can make 3 to 5% of the value of the house in under 10 hours. So if you have a $300,000 house, that's $9,000 you can make in under 10 hours. That's pretty good money, and you're out of the deal. You can look at sandwich lease options, but there's more risk involved. And if you don't have 3 months to put away in case you have to evict a tenant on a sandwich, I highly recommend you stay with lease option assignments. So this ends our intro video about not being a one-trick pony. It's very, very important you understand that remember that quadrant here, the wholesaling flipping, where your frustration level is high and your effectiveness is low and your success is low? Well, let's flip that and get your frustration level low and your effectiveness high and your success high, because you're spending the same amount of money, but you're making more money because you're doing more deals with that particular marketing budget. So thanks for listening to this particular intro recording. If you want to contact us for training, please just look at the description and call the number below. I want to thank you so much. And this is Brian Gibbons with Don'tBeAOneTrickPony.com. See you at the top. Bye for now.